Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Talking Baldocks. I'm Matt Baldock.
And I'm Neil Baldock.
And special thanks to a chap you can't see called Mark Fountain of Fountains Media, who's lent us his studio today. So this is probably going to look a bit posher and sound a bit better than it usually does.
Yeah, pleased to be here. Slightly different format, but looking forward to a great episode.
So I thought today we would actually discuss who are the Baldock Brothers to a certain extent, because I think we're in a world where there's lots of people out there giving advice, and we're amongst them. And sometimes I will read things and think, who the fuck are you to be telling us what to do? And, same. And people may well say that about us. So I just thought we'd have a chat, give a bit of a background of, not when I was born, on the 21st of November, 1979, but we'll kind of bit through our childhood, how we got into agency, what we've kind of done, and maybe some mistakes made along the way. And then people kind of get a bit of an idea of who we are, what we're about, and and then they might want to come and ask us some help if they need it.
Sounds good to me, yeah. So I guess we've taken slightly different career paths, haven't we? But ended up at the same place. So
yeah, and if you think about it, we even at school. So obviously, both. I moved to Chelmsford when I was 3 days old. Before I say, I was born in Chelmsford. You correct me. You obviously born here. Same school, obviously. We didn't actually like each other as kids, though, did we?
I'm not sure I like it too much now, but we just tolerate you. But no, we didn't really have a great relationship as children, really. Had quite separate lives, didn't we?
Yeah, it used to nick my dinner. And that was better. So then, obviously go through schooling, but then we took different paths then, because I went off to university and you went straight out to work.
Yeah. Well, I just had absolutely no interest in any form of studying, really, did I? I just loved earning a pound note and going out to work. And I think from when I went and did work experience, I just loved going to work. And so yeah, I just didn't want to go and do any kind of academic studying. So I just went straight out. In fact, I did A levels, then didn't like that, so then I went and did a GMBQ and didn't like that either. So that's when I went to work.
I think that's a kind of an important point to touch on for anyone who's got kids. So my eldest is doing his GCSEs at the minute, doesn't particularly like school, wants to go to college and do more of like an MVQ thing. So I took the more academic route, so I went to university. But it's important, I think, maybe just as an aside for people with kids, that you don't have to go and do the traditional GCSE, A-levels, university to become a business owner. In fact, sometimes that can slow you down a bit, right? You've either got it, you've always wanted to be out there working, traditionally in sales roles.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't think especially in today's world with the advance in technology, you have to be kind of a grade A student to then run a successful business.
No, 100% not. I think business doesn't really come from, from your studies, does it? It comes more from your life skills and other things that you enjoy doing. And to be honest, if I'd have gone to university and I hadn't had that grounding of going to work so early and all that kind of sales, I went into retail to start with, I probably wouldn't have developed the skills that I needed when we did want to start a business.
Yeah. So if we get into maybe how we started, so I did go to university. I went to get a law degree, which I like to remind you about. Ed.
Quite. Have you got that still displayed in your office somewhere?
Yeah, of course. I worked very hard for that, so it's something to be proud of. But I, as I've mentioned in other podcasts, I left my last exam early to go to a barbecue. So yeah, the tax law element. I still don't know what plant and machinery is to this day, but so I left my last exam early to go to a barbecue. Had to do the resit. Night before the resit, England beat Germany 5-1. Even Heskey scored, so I ended up in the Palais in Nottingham. Beers, and messed up. So the legal career was obviously not going to be for me. So came back to Chelmsford, walking up and down Duke Street. So if anyone's ever been to Chelmsford, that's kind of a state agency row. There's a pub on it, which is probably where I was headed. And I saw a guy in the front window of an agency with a really nice suit on, reading a copy of The Sun. I thought, that doesn't seem that hard. Anyway, went about my day. A few days later, going back again, probably to the pub again. Blokes in the window again, a nice suit on, reading a copy of The Sun. So I thought, well, look, this must be easy. So I printed off a load of CVs, walked up and down Duke Street, handing them out, and got given a job with Spicer McCall, as it was at the time, but Spicer Hart, as an office junior. £8,000 a year back then as a
Big buck.
as a basic wage, big money. Sat around the corner where I couldn't see any customers. Got given an applicant box and got told to make 5 viewings. I went, not a problem whatsoever. But can you just tell me what a viewing is?
Yeah.
So that was about 24 years ago, and then you started obviously being younger, which I know you find impossible to believe out there. You came into it a little bit later.
Yes, I think, well, as I said, I left school, went straight into work, working for a company called Field and Trek, selling camping gear and stuff like that. And then I think I was 18, 19, and I got promoted into their head office running their return. It was a mail order company as well as a retail shop, so they did mail order of camping gear. And I was in there running the returns department, so basically dealing with customer complaints, where they'd send back faulty gear, that kind of stuff, and having to sort that out. And I had this little small team of people that I was running. And for me at the time, I mean, I was on probably terrible money, but as a 19-year-old, I was reporting directly to the chairman of the company. And, you know, I thought this is brilliant. But again, it gave me those sort of the grounding skills of dealing with difficult people and difficult situations. And then I wanted to get back into more of a sales role. I loved sales. I liked it when I was selling products in the store. And I think, I had a chat with you, looked at what you was doing, and came down to meet the area manager, and got a job. Not in the Chelmsford branch, actually, was it? I think I got sent to Bishop Stortford to start with. And and then I had my first job. So I was probably early 20s, I guess, when I started at a estate agency.
Because we were friends by then, weren't we?
Yeah, we'd started talking by then. You've come back from uni, and we'd had one big bust up, sorted it out, and decided to talk to each other again.
Yeah, well, we had probably the shortest lived fight ever, didn't we? Really?
Yeah.
I think we got a bit too drunk. I tried headbutting you. You punched me. I ended up on the floor and said, "Look, let's not do that again. Let's be friends."
And that's
and since then, and a beautiful bond was formed, really. And since then, I mean, obviously we have our ups and downs, but on the whole, we've just been together kind of since, really, haven't we? So, as you say, both working for your move. You were in Bishop Stortford. I was in Chelmsford. Then at one point, I was in Bishop Stortford. You were in Chelmsford. And then we ended up working from together.
Yeah. And then from there, we actually, as we like to tell people, we probably started one of the first online estate agents that ever existed before all the big names ones were out there. When the term was for sale by owner, do you remember that?
Yeah. Essex Moving.
We started, and we had our own website, and we moved into a little serviced office over in Haybridge near Malden, and we thought, this is fantastic, didn't we? And then we sat there and said to each other, what do we do now?
Yeah, we got business cards printed.
We did.
And we thought, and it said director on it, and we thought, we were big time now. And then we sat there and nothing happened. So we went for lunch.
Yeah.
And we came back and not a lot happened, and we went home. And that probably continued for about 3 months, didn't it? Until we ran out of money.
Yeah, until we ran out of money. And then I think we both just went back and got jobs in the estate agency.
Yeah. Got jobs again. So that was, I mean, and that was a real lesson, wasn't it? So, you know, there is no point if you want to own a business, you've got to work and you've got to graft. And just because you go, I now own a business, does not mean the business comes to you. And I think that's what a lot of people find, you know, and we'll come on to it later in the journey, but you can be a really good estate agent, but being a business owner is a completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah, well, it's just, and I think that is where people come unstuck, is they think, I know how to list houses, or I've been a very good lister in the past, or a good negotiator. But what they haven't realised is their head office has been doing the marketing for them, or giving them the lead generation and things like that. And we found that out very quickly. Doing the job is one thing, but being able to run a business which has multi facets to it in terms of finance, marketing, operations, sales, and everything else that goes along with it, you've got to become a master of all of those things.
Yeah, I think if you look back, I mean, there's probably a bit of a lesson in there somewhere, but we just dicked about, really. And the lesson was, you've got to take it seriously if you've got.
Yeah, well, you've got to take some action, haven't you?
Yeah, no business. So back into employment, obviously, for a bit longer. I went down the corporate route. You left agency for a while and went into security, and then became a policeman.
I did, yeah. So, a bit of a complete change. But I kind of thought to myself, I started working security on the doors because we were trying to run this online agency, and obviously needed some income. So I was working nights on the doors. Then I got off.
That makes it sound like I was a kept man.
I was fun.
You were working nights to look after me.
But it was a way that I could work and earn some income and try and do something in the day as well. So, I was doing that, and then I did well at that. So then I got a job as like an area manager, and I was running multi-sites. I think at one point in time I was responsible for about 100 doormen across the country over various different venues, all over the southeast of England. And at one point I was doing 5 days a week in the office and 4 or 5 nights a week on the door as well. And I guess, again, a great place to learn about business. The owner of that company is still a good friend of mine, probably one of my mentors, Gary Powers, and learned a lot from being involved in that industry. But then I kind of thought to myself, I need a proper career. And so I decided to join the police. So, to join Essex Police, and ended up doing 6 years in there before I realised I really miss business and doing deals and things like that, which isn't necessarily what you can do when you're in the police.
And if you take kind of lessons, you're a well-rounded, I don't mean physically, but, a estate agent generally, but obviously people know you for being more the lettings head, if you like, and the building management. If you take kind of skill sets that you got from working on the doors, dealing with probably just drunk, angry people, obviously the police dealing with some extreme situations, how did that kind of help you, do you think, in translate back when you came back into agency and in lettings and property management?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things, although I don't like studying when I'm told I have to. I am quite good at learning, and learning legislation is probably one. You had to do that in the police. You have to do that when you're on the doors with licensing laws and things like that. And obviously, as a letting agent, we've got a lot of legislation we're dealing with. So something I'm good at is translating that legislation and kind of learning it and translating it and putting that into the business. So I think that helped a lot, and also kind of resilience. And, we always joke in our office, don't we? If somebody starts panicking over a washing machine breaking down, I'm always saying, has someone died?
Yeah.
Because, there isn't many situations that are going to panic me. And I think that's given us and the whole team a good kind of a different perspective, I should probably say. The things other people panic about, I just don't.
No, that is true. And I think that's something I saw, because I was a pure sales agent when I was employed. It was only since we've had the agency been in letting. So someone would phone up ranting and raving about a washing machine, and it probably would fluster me. But one thing I noticed was you would never get flustered by that, because, without trying to be too brutal about it, you'd have to go to people's houses and tell them that, a family member had died. So you were used to dealing with actual bad news, just as opposed to kind of inconveniences, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've spoken about it before, but I even told someone their son had died once, and then he walked straight back in the front door.
It's really not
story for another day, but didn't go down too well at the time, and I was quite shocked myself, to be honest.
Tell the story.
Well, I was working over sort of Loughton Chigwell way at the time, because that's where I did my tutorship in the police, and the Metropolitan Police had asked us to give something called a knock message, which is a next of kin message, which basically means just, someone's died and you've got to go and tell the next of kin. And so we took all the information, turned up at the house, and unfortunately the lad who supposedly died, his parents were away on holiday, so I'm dealing with his nan, bless her, and his little sister. And so I said to the nan, look, I've got some really bad news. I need to tell you. And she said, well, his parents are away, etc., etc. To cut a long story short, there's only one way to give bad news, and that's to give the bad news. So you tell them, I'm really sorry this happened. There's been an accident, and so and so's died. And then she said, well, that can't be right. He only went out 5 minutes ago. She said, I'll call him. I said, well, I don't know if you'll be able to call him, but fine. Anyway, she did make a phone call. And the next thing, he just walked straight back in the front door. And so, so there's a lesson in checking your information, but sometimes you have to trust the source of the information as well.
Yeah, I guess so. And it's kind of, it's funny, but it's not funny, that poor family. But I suppose, if you put it back to our game, once you've made those kind of things, phoning somebody up and saying, look, I'm really sorry we've made a mistake, or I'm really sorry your buyer's pulled out, don't get me wrong, you care, but you understand, where it sits in the kind of scale of life.
Yeah, you do. And I think what happens is you just come to learn that if something's happened, it's happened.
Yeah.
And that might be the washing machine's broken down, or someone's been murdered, or your house sale's fallen through, or anything in between. And it's not that you don't care about it, it's just it's happened. So the best way to care about that person is to, give them the reality of what's happened and then help them through it.
Yeah.
And I think I've said before, haven't I? I think a lot of police officers' skills, because I think that's where people pigeonhole themselves. I'm an estate agent, I'm a police officer, or I'm a whatever. Actually, when you start drilling down into what the skill set is that's required for each of those roles, like a police officer's skill set in terms of problem solving, resilience, empathy, all these different things, it actually translates straight into an estate agent's role in some respects.
Yeah, certainly property management.
And certainly property management and just a property world in general, really.
Yeah. Okay. So, admittedly, you followed your big brother, probably your hero, into a estate agency originally. Then, obviously,
I think I had to come and help you out to hit the sales numbers, didn't I?
Right, yeah, maybe. Then, well, on that, we all have to mention that time we had that bungalow on the market that desperately needed reducing. And, I'd tried, somebody else in the office had tried, and no one could get this lady to reduce her bungalow. So, obviously, Billy Big Bollocks Neil Baldock turns up and says, "Look, I don't know what you're messing around for. I'll deal with this." So
I'll take care of this.
Yeah. Pick up the phone, and you're on the phone. I can hear you really having this conversation. Then all I hear is, "Yep, no, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. Yeah, great." Put the phone down, looks up, and goes, "Price has gone up by 25 grand." So you didn't always hit the targets there, but. Anyway, so while you were kind of with the police there, I had left employment and gone into Charles David Casson with the cut. So I think the company had been running about 6 months, and I went in and opened a second office.
You did, yeah. But before that, you got offered kind of a flagship branch manager role, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't get me wrong. I was mustard. So, when I was employed, I won everything. So the champagne and certificates, top legal banker. I'll say banker very, very carefully. Never ever do FS that well. But yeah, no, I did well. But and I did well. But I found the company I was at. So I'd hit my target by targets ran till Friday. I'd hit my target by Wednesday. I'd list the house I needed to list. I would bank the most money I was banking in legals, and then I'd still get hammered for not doing enough on the FS side of things. It was kind of, no matter what you did, wasn't good enough. And I used to go, I had somebody else mentioned the other day, like the Sunday scaries, like Sunday night, I'd be looking at my phone. I had listed, 10 houses that week, and I only have 5 appointments in the diary, and it would just really start to kind of get to me, and I'd start to have this real bad anxiety on a Sunday night. And at that kind of point, there had to be more to it, put it that way. Obviously, I think I'd had a second child as well, so you start looking at things a bit differently when you become a parent, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Went into Charles David Casson, and we had some really good times. We had some difficult times, like most business. In honesty, I didn't really do any due diligence. Again, I thought, business owner, this sounds great. Kind of remortgaged my house, threw it in there. And as I say, we had some really good times, and we had some difficult times. You were coming to a stage where, as you missed sales, but also with your personal life, the police just wasn't conducive really to, the shift pattern didn't really work for you, did it?
No, that's it. I'd got a baby by then, and I just quickly realised I wasn't going to really see a lot of him, and have a flexible enough lifestyle whilst I was in the police and being told, "Oh, you can't go home now because something's happened, and you got to stay on shift or another." And I was working. The thing is, I was working like 12, 18-hour shifts sometimes. And I'd started a letting agency whilst I was in the police.
Yeah. That's another bit. So you'd started a letting agency. What was it called?
It was called Monster Homes at the time.
It's a terrible name.
Fantastic. People loved it.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So, Monster Homes you'd started. So you kind of had Monster Homes, you had the police, and I think you had to give up one or the other, right? You had to give up the police or give up Monster Homes. Obviously, I was there at the agency. again, being your hero, you'd followed me once into a career, and you wanted to follow me again. I think that's fair to say.
Come and save you.
Yeah. So obviously you came on board, and we went from there. So speed through maybe a couple of years. What we ended up doing, not all the business partners wanted to carry on doing it, so we basically bought the business partners out.
Yeah, so we did a deal whereby we sold the lettings, but didn't we? So we sold quite a decent, or a very big portfolio of lettings. Almost like a management buyout. One partner took a couple of offices. We took the Chelmsford business, and sold the lettings book over in Hertfordshire and split the company up that way.
Yeah, and then 2014 just came back to Chelmsford. Me and you sold 50-50 owners and kind of went again. And I think that is, and not to try and blow our own trumpet, but that is the bit we try and explain to people. So, there's a lot of talk about acquisitions and things like that. But I think before we bought anything, we sold something. Right?
Yeah, we'd been through it in reverse because we sold before we bought. Yeah.
And we sold for like a 6-figure sum. We sold a good sized business, and I think that then really helped us and we'll talk about the acquisitions, but that's then helped us in the acquisitions because we've seen it from the selling side, right? And that helped us probably become better buyers.
Yeah, definitely. Because also we our first sale of a business was to a big corporate buyer.
Yeah.
Who were fucking difficult to deal with, to be perfectly honest. I mean, nice enough people.
Yeah.
But obviously, when you're dealing with one person at the corporate, you're also dealing with a huge legal team behind them and board members and things like that. And it was difficult.
I think I had a conference call with about 14 people on it. Yeah, at one point. Yeah, it wasn't too much fun. So we go to 2014. Me, you, our best friend at the time.
Yeah.
Trying to run this, run this agency. We kind of split it, so I would take sales, you would take lettings, and that, kind of going there. But there were some lessons there, weren't there? So we spoke about it on the Chris Watkin podcast before. We actually had to fire our best friend.
Yeah. I mean, that was awful, really, because he was literally our best friend. We used to go on holiday with him, and we'd given. I think he'd had a hard time in his life. We'd given him a job. He'd then got a house that he was renting for our agency. We'd also given him a car, so we'd also kind of like built the life up, or helped him to build his life again. And then he just stopped. He stopped turning up on time. Stopped paying his rent, which was one of our clients. And yeah, we tried to have those chats. I mean, we actually paid the rent for him a couple of times to make sure the client didn't miss out. And unfortunately, ended up having to part ways in the end.
Yeah. And that was, and don't get me wrong, sacking people, making them redundant is never easy. But I think that was really like a baptism of fire for us, right? Because, there couldn't have been a worse person to have to say, you can't work here anymore too.
Yeah, definitely. I think going back to what we've been saying before about there's no way, or the best way to deliver bad news is to deliver bad news. Sometimes you just have to do it. And what we've learned over the years is, everybody's a nice person, but nice people don't make money. No, nice. If you get what I mean, nice people aren't always going to achieve the things that a business needs to achieve to flourish. And so, unfortunately, sometimes you do have to part ways, whether that's for a performance issue or an attitude issue or whatever it is. But that is just the reality of running a business, and you have to be able to kind of take those decisions and be able to deliver that news to people sometimes.
Yeah. And then I was just thinking about the other day. So if you think just me and you in Chelmsford, we were in a serviced office, then in a small kind of office of our own, but a very small one. We've been on Duke Street on the Estate Agents Row, and now we're at Imperial House, a big building. And I think, if you look at the letting side of things, which is sometimes the easiest part to kind of measure and put into numbers, we're 9-10 times the size in managed properties that we were when we very first started.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So some real growth in kind of 10 or 11 years. And obviously some of that has been organic by our work, but obviously acquisitions. And this is the other thing. So there's a lot of people out there talking strategies, but we've done it, right? So yeah. We've done, 5 acquisitions?
5 acquisitions, yeah. Yeah, some of them have been, small portfolios. One of them doubled the size of our business that was the first one we did.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've been involved in 5, and we've probably been involved in at least another 5 which haven't, which we either haven't been able to buy or didn't want to buy for various reasons.
Yeah. And that's, I think, something that we've had to learn over this is you can't and you shouldn't buy every single deal that comes to you.
No, that's right. Yeah. You don't want to be desperate for an acquisition, because if you're desperate to buy something, you're always going to not look into it properly and pay a price which probably doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And then, and over those years, the amount of mistakes we've made has been, but we always say, you can only learn from making mistakes, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And this is why when we have people chatting to us about the consulting side of things, it's like, yes, we've had this amount of success and I'll happily tell you about it, but learn from the mistakes kind of, we sponsored everything, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. I mean, at one point, I think we were sponsoring roundabouts, the cricket club, all kinds of. Yeah, the thing is with sponsorships, I don't think the mistake wasn't necessarily the sponsorship, because we still sponsor things now. But this sponsorship really is a lead into networking.
Yes.
If you just whack your logo on the front of a local football club or local ice hockey club, in our case, a football club and ice hockey club, or the cricket club, and then never go there and introduce yourself and tell people who you are, you're probably going to do not a lot of business.
Yeah.
And that's what we've found is actually more about the sponsorship is one thing. Yeah, it's great, but you've got to get involved to sort of build that network.
So I think the cricket club was the biggest mistake we made on that, because we put a board up there which cost a fair amount of money, and there were so many networking opportunities, probably with the right people, especially the landlord. But we just never went down there, did we?
Yeah.
I think once our board came up on Sky Sports and we got really excited about that and put a picture on Facebook.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually getting there. Whereas when we've done the more localised stuff, so like the local schools, we'll actually, I'll go, I've gone and run stalls at the school fair because it'd be my kid's stall. The ice hockey we sponsor now, you're at every ice hockey match. My son's football team is sponsored. I'm at all the games there, so we're listening. So yeah, you're right. You actually have to be. It's no good just putting some money somewhere and saying, "Oh, we're part of the community." You actually have to be part of the community.
Be part of that community. Be part of that network. Yeah,
just actually kind of and being there really. So, can you look back and think, what's kind of one of the biggest mistakes we made, or something, or one of the biggest learnings that you've had in kind of running the business?
I think that the finances really, if we'd have, if we did this all again, it would be a lot easier because we know how to manage finance now and we know how money works.
I still don't think I do.
Well, to be fair, you probably don't.
Well, you do, so
but one of us does, so that's fine. And that's the thing. You need people that bring in different skill sets. But I think, we had no clue when we first started running a business about how to manage money, what a profit and loss meant, what a balance sheet meant, and all the rest of it. And if you don't know that, then there's not much good. That's the foundation at the end of the day. So there's not much good then building on that or going out and acquiring another company if you don't understand what profit it's actually going to give you. Because you might end up buying something that's going to cost you money. For me, that's where we made the massive mistakes. And then we've learned about that, haven't we? We've done nothing too terrible because we're still going. We've been going 14 years now.
And actually, for you, and I will say that the finance side of things is your skill set, definitely. But being self-taught, and you have been, probably puts you in a better position, now, because you haven't just skimmed some, the books on it. You've actually had to learn by doing it, working long hours, having some worrying nights, when we were first going. But probably puts you in a better position to understand it all now.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think much like with, I tend to focus more on like the team element and stuff like that. But because we've never had HR consultants, we've learned as we go. Up till fairly recently, I think we had 5 people off on maternity leave, which is, and that was the first. We'd never had one on maternity leave, and then suddenly we had like 5 in a very short space of time. So, and don't get me wrong, I do believe in taking professional advice and hiring professionals, but I think you need to be in it and kind of have an understanding of it, of what's going on. I think on the team side of things, I think my biggest learning is probably to hire faster, but also maybe fire faster as well. So, I think people always say, oh, I can't afford anybody. What we tell people is, you look and go, I haven't got £30,000 to pay somebody. We don't need £30,000. You need maybe 9, because if they're not working after 3 months, you've got to let them go.
Yeah, that's it.
But that's the bit, is actually letting them go. And I think we're, in the past, because, we are nice people. I think I'm nice.
As you are.
Well, yeah. I'm nicer. But I think we've known that people aren't right for the business, and we probably haven't held them to account enough.
Yeah.
And we've probably kept them, because, I mean, especially me, I like to champion the underdog. So you come to me in an interview of a sob story back in the early days, you could just kind of have the job. And it's never a nice thing to talk about. And I also think it's a bit to do with your ego, because I think we live in this world where we see about leadership and culture, and you think, oh, God, they must be doing it so well. So if you hire somebody and it doesn't work out, you almost don't want to admit that you got it wrong. And so you keep them for longer than you should, because you want to be right. You don't want to have to go, on LinkedIn and go, I'm hiring again, and people put 2 and 2 together and think they've either got 400 members of staff or they're losing some people. But ultimately, everybody makes a wrong hire. A lot of people take the wrong job. So, some people will take a job and the company isn't for them. And likewise, the company isn't always for the person. So I think I wish we'd probably hired quicker, because me and you did some ridiculous hours.
Yeah.
But also sometimes, sadly, I think you've got to say goodbye to people a bit quicker.
Yeah, you do. And that's probably it's one of the toughest parts of running a business, is dealing with the people. And I think the other thing, that's the big lesson we've learned, is to hire on values and attitude. So, we just used to bring anyone into the business that we liked, basically. If we thought we'd go down for a beer with you, then you had a job. That was the early days. Then we realised, okay, we need some skill set here, because we're not very good at admin ourselves. We're great business generators, but we needed some property managers. So we took property managers on to do that kind of side of it. But then it comes down to values, doesn't it? And if you're recruiting people who ultimately have completely different values to you, it's never going to work. And we never used to do that. And since we kind of learned that, I think we've had a lot more, or certainly when we actually follow the process of the interview process, and and we've had that sometimes where we've allowed someone else to interview someone, and maybe we haven't told them enough that these are the, you really do need to stick to these values, and we only want people that meet those, because otherwise you're just recruiting someone into a business that's never going to work if they haven't got the same values as you.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And you just end up getting annoyed with them. And a lot of time you can't work out, and they don't know, because they haven't got the values. They don't know to do what you want them to do, because that's just not how they feel. And you have to understand people are different.
Yeah, and if you bring someone into your business, like one of our values is we learn. If you bring someone into the business who never wants to learn anything, isn't interested in any form of sort of self-development, growth, learning legislation, learning marketing skills, that kind of thing, they're just not going to fit in with our company, because we're all learning all the time.
Yeah. So you need a range of skill sets, but basically same values.
Absolutely.
Is what you go from there. So a lot of people say to me and you, "Oh, you're so lucky to work with your." Or they say to you, "You're so lucky to work with your brother," because there's two of you, basically. Because business ownership is lonely. We always say you've got to make a difficult decision. You've got no one to bounce it off. Yeah. And I always say, you can't high five yourself. So to a certain, obviously we are lucky. We've got each other. Obviously, it doesn't always work like that. What do you think is like the trials and tribulations almost of working together? And then we'll finish with your favourite thing about me. But
I'm going to upset you now then.
Yeah, no. But what have you found over the years the toughest thing about working with your brother?
Well, I suppose the toughest thing really is when you've got a difference of opinion, a different idea, or you really, one of you feels really strongly about something and the other one doesn't. I think you're quite an emotional person sometimes. I think I offend you quite a lot, because communication between us can be quite difficult, because I'm quite well, you call it rude, I call it blunt. I tell you things straight. I feel like you're emotional about it sometimes, and I'm not so.
I think it's my age.
So that is a challenge sometimes, isn't it? I'll send you a message, and in my head it's just a message, and in your head it's like, I don't know, you're being rude.
Oh no, you text like an 80-year-old. You use the thumbs up emoji, and like you replied to somebody with a thumbs up emoji, and the thumbs up emoji is, I forget the term for it. when you're like pretending to be nice, but you're really not. What's the?
You're saying thanks very much.
No, you're going, yeah, cheers, mate. It's like his studies and everything. The thumbs up emoji, you cannot reply with that. So yeah, don't. I'll tell you that now.
You'll have a few thumbs up from me later. I tell you.
When you do the thumbs up emoji.
Yeah, but no, I think yeah. So that's it is a challenge sometimes, but we also compliment each other in other ways. Sometimes I feel like it slows us down having two of us because you can't make quick decisions. You have to consult your partner, but that's not just your brother. That'd be with any business partner. Whereas if you flip it the other way around, you could say, well, that actually means we consider things more, and you get a different perspective on it.
Yeah, I do find over the years it's become a bit, because I think when we very first had the business, we were literally at work together all day, and then we had the same group of mates as well.
Yeah.
So we would literally be at work, then be social, and we were younger then, so you could go down the pub or 3 nights a week and still function. So we'd be at work, social. So about every 3 months, we'd have a bit of a blow up, wouldn't we? I'd take myself off for walks to the lake in Chelmsford.
Yeah, I'm probably due one of those about now.
Yeah, and to be honest, I didn't like the way you were messaging me yesterday, so we might have one. But I think as we've got older, obviously, families, and so you spend more time with the kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We're not in each other's pockets as much. That's become a little bit. It's not a lot like a pressure cooker as much. It's become become a bit easier there. But the thing sometimes is is that difficult part, isn't it? Where like you pissed me off a bit yesterday, but then that's a work thing, and then you've got to have we were filming all day today, and so I was trying not to get annoyed yesterday because I wanted to have a nice day today, and there is that separation sometimes, isn't it? Whereas you have a disagreement at work, but it's work.
But it's work.
You don't want that to then flood into like your personal bit.
No, that's right.
Afterwards.
Well, I mean, number one, you shouldn't get annoyed so easily. But also, yeah, I mean, I think I've always been quite good at saying that's work and that's personal. And almost saying, like, yes, you're my brother, but when we're at work, we're business partners.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's your favourite thing about me?
I have to really think about this one now.
What's the best? The best thing about working is not the favourite thing about you. I will pay you a compliment in a bit, but for me, the best thing about working with my brother is I can just trust you implicitly.
Yeah.
So, like, we'll joke. Don't get me wrong. I understand numbers, but I don't like dealing with it, right? So we always just say, I don't want to see a spreadsheet. You don't want to see a holiday form. And that was really nice because I could deal with the HR side of things. You could deal with that. But I know, so I don't have to look at the bankings and things like that because I know you've got it. And out of anybody, I know I can trust you.
Yeah.
More than anybody.
I haven't told you about that trip to Barbados.
So I do think that no matter whether I agree with your decisions or don't agree with the decisions you're making, sometimes I know you're doing it kind of for the right and for the good of the family. So I think that's an easier thing. And we do have probably a closer bond than maybe a lot of family members. So that for me is the easier thing about working with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do like to give you some grief and I do like to keep you in check, but you are one of my best mates as well as my brother. So I think you're right. There's absolute trust within the business, and we do have different skill sets. Like, I don't want to deal with the fluffy. I do care greatly about our staff, but I don't want to deal with the fluffy stuff. I don't want to deal with any bullshit of someone complaining about something trivial when I'm thinking, do you know what I mean? Like, there is that, and so, but I think we need the both, because if it was all fluffy, I'm not saying you're all fluffy, but if it was all fluffy, we'd never make like hardline stuff, and if it was all hardline stuff, we'd
I always say, and it's not that you don't care about it, but I would say if you were solely in charge, we'd have probably loads of money, but maybe nobody working for us, and if I was in charge, we'd have loads of people working for us, but no money, and it's that kind of balance that you've got to find
a little bit unfair, because I think you're the team, they don't mind working for me.
No. As I say, but I maybe have a bit more time for the stuff that, as you say, is maybe fluffy, seems unimportant on a business level.
Yeah.
But by the same token, I don't want to sit in a meeting with the accountant, which is the really important stuff, and do that. So it does balance out. So what would you say is my number one skill set?
Well, sales, really, isn't it? I think it's getting instructions, valuing, like you are a very good sales agent.
Very, very good.
Yeah. So I don't mind saying that.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think your other skill set is your care for people, you know. And it does. I think it presents a challenge sometimes because we probably do keep people for longer than we should. But I do think that is a great strength.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. So we can end on there.
Yeah. Oh, come on, wasn't one?
We can do that. No. So with you, I actually genuinely admire the fact you've self-taught yourself. Yeah. The numbers, the finances. You are literally a self-made businessman. In terms of that, and that can translate, because we've obviously got friends that own businesses, and you know they can have questions about that, and that translates across the board. So you know, and your technical knowledge on the letting side of things is, bearing in mind I was the academic one. Actually, your kind of technical knowledge is unbelievable. The way you can sausage just wandered in, but I actually think so. You know, your knowledge and the fact, and I will say, you don't panic. You know, and no matter what comes up in business, it doesn't bother you. You don't worry about it. You know, there's always problems that you can kind of fix.
Did you just like my silence there?
Yeah,
one of my sales techniques to just keep you talking, keep me talking, compliments coming,
and talking. I was trying to talk to you, Andy, and I was watching Lola the sausage dog, and I was thinking, I wonder if she's going to wander in, but yeah, just under there now, really. So
just want to give
that's good.
Yeah.
So what can how can we help other people? Because that's one thing we do like to do, isn't it?
Helping other people, yeah. It genuinely is my favourite thing to do. Whether that's the clients we're selling houses for or people in their business. And listen, me and you aren't too good at doing the big self-promotion thing. I admit I get really frustrated with LinkedIn, watching all these people say, who have actually never done anything, say, if I owned a business, I would do this, or when I worked on, but they've actually never run their own business, We can help people, I think, with just realistic advice. So it's not textbook, and don't get me wrong, there is stuff you need to learn, but if you go from it, we've had a company, we've sold a company, we've built again almost from scratch, we've 10 times the size of our lettings portfolio, we've done 5 acquisitions. I think we started the pandemic with six of us. We came out with 17, and we hover around that 13 mark. So hiring, sadly, letting people go, just really what I call realistic business advice.
Yeah. And also I think we've been through the mill a few times. So if people are having any struggles in their business, they can come and talk to us, and we'll tell them how to keep their head down and keep on going.
Yeah, listen, most people we know in agents are good agents, and they can speak to people, but we've dealt with it all. We've had payday issues, dealing with HMRC, corporate, the tech and the account side of things. Now, I must say, we've done maternity people wanting to leave, the HR side of things. Yeah, we've had some, don't get me wrong, I think about it, I've had some sleepless nights over the last kind of, about 14 years now. I've had some really sleepless nights, but I've had some great times. And now, if you look at where we are now as business owners, I think we've really hit that work-life synergy. So I don't say balance, because balance is two opposing forces against each other, but the synergy. So, last night at 8 o'clock at night, was I doing some work? Yes. But for 3 hours in the day, I could take some time with the little one if I wanted. Say the same as you. You can do stuff with your son, and then you work. So it's not, a rigid 9 to 5. But we have got ourselves to a stage now where the business can run, and we can do some different things. And that's what I think most business owners want to get to. It's not just about earning more money. Because there's no point earning, £1 million if you've got never any time to spend it.
Yeah.
So it's actually about having the time to enjoy the money you've worked hard to get. And I think that's where we can help people.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Okay. Good stuff. So, as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you're listening to the podcast.
Who have you been?
No, yeah. I've been Matt Baldock.
I've been Neil Baldock.
And that was Talking Baldocks.
That's it.
I don't know how that went well.
Oh, sorry about the dog. That's right.
That was brilliant.
I just didn't want to pick her up and they'd bite me.
Oh,
Mate, that was absolutely...